Welcome to the Low Production, High Value Show with your host, Andrew Jenkins. On the show, we'll be exploring the world of entrepreneurship, social media, and the growing digital landscape. Whether you're a seasoned entrepreneur or just starting out, you know that the world of business is constantly evolving and changing. And in today's digital age, it is more important than ever to understand how social media and technology are affecting the way we do business. That's why on this show, we'll be talking to entrepreneurs and experts who have a wealth of knowledge and experience to share with you. From the latest trends and technologies to the struggles and triumphs of running a business, we'll be covering it all. So if you're looking to level up your entrepreneurial game and become more digitally savvy, then let's get started with the Low Production, High Value Show.
Welcome to the latest episode, and today's guest is Sara G. Welcome, Sara.
Thank you, Andrew. Glad to be here.
So, for those tuning in who are unfamiliar with you, one of the reasons I wanted to talk to you is because of your extensive background in analytics. And I'm wondering if you can just share a little bit about, your time in analytics and how you, what you've been focused on in that arena, and how you came to be in that field.
Well, I think before I sort of touched on the analytics, I should probably go back a little bit further. How I,
Whole journey.
just start and join this space, and I'm gonna really dig myself there. Before sort of the social media, the shiny tool. I've always been in the information services field, meaning providing research insights, information services to corporate clients. If you think about the days that there is still corporate library exists, that's where I come in. So, and one reason being that is, I love to read and, always curious about what's going on around me, around the world. So I think it's that, it's a fairly easy transition or jump, if you will, getting to social media. At that time, 2009, I think we're just about to take off, social media. But, back then.
If I can interject, that shift, was it that driven by curiosity, personal interest, or was it, I'll call it, employer or client requirement, or what sort of caused the shift for you?
It's a mix. I think it's, the world is changing. Everything's changing, but economic turmoil, if you could call it. I think my sort of work, it's kind of, come to a stop then. And I had the opportunity to look, where do I go as the next step, or should I, be on my own, as an entrepreneur. And so timing is everything, as we say it. So I did have that opportunity to look, what could I be doing? And it's a fairly transition to, provide a similar services to this new social media world. And if you can recall back then, there are kind of, services, one is managing the social media accounts pages for clients. One is doing the training for clients, teach clients how to use the social media and all that. And the other one, I would say 3 pillars, right? So those are 2. And then the third pillar would be sort of really doing the measurement metrics, analytics, if you will, in the early days. And I recall not many people would touch that. So I feel, I can give it a try. And so that's how I got into the social media measurement and, analytics. And it's been a ride.
Well, I mean, you saw a gap that wasn't being filled by others, and kudos to you for jumping in.
Yeah, thank you. I think that's one of my specialty. I see things and I see the gap and I try to fill it.
Well, and so that time frame, 08, 09, 2010, when you look at what you were focused on then from an analytics perspective versus now, what were the priorities then? Like, what were people keen to know or understand, or is it a bit more of like you had the luxury of telling them what was important versus, because the phrase, they didn't know what they didn't know. So they weren't necessarily well enough informed to know what to ask or to know what to be seeking in terms of insight.
Yeah, for sure. I think in the early days, as everything else, and everyone is trying to understand a little bit more for the metrics or measurement of it. It's really that, and as brands and everybody trying to build their social presence, the skill, I would say, it's top of mind. So very focused on how many likes, how many followers, or how many fans on Facebook, if you will. So that those are big things back then. And I remember a couple brands, they would do sort of the milestone celebration when the combination of their handles or page reached 1 million followers. It's a big thing. So those are the metrics in the early days, and really I would say less mature measurement, if you will. But then again, really, those are the things that that were available back then, and I still think excuse me, it is fair, in the early days to look at that and kind of see how you build your brand presence and how um, engaging you are in terms, to your followers and fans. So probably those metrics aren't that important nowadays. But then again, engagement has always been, to me, one of the indicator that how you're performing.
Well, I've always felt, a, a like is so easy to give, click like, versus lingering on the content, sharing it, commenting back. When there's an additional effort required, that suggests to me that, that's more valuable because it shows that it's more substantive in terms of the impact that we're generated. Um, if stakeholders ask you, "Oh, we want about going viral,"
Absolutely. And the question is, how do we go viral, right? And then we're like,
we have to
um,
have puppies.
the interesting and fascinating things about social, as you know, is you never know. You never know when, you never know what. All you can do is put out the best piece of content and most relatable message.
Well, you want to go viral for the right reasons, not
Not,
controversial reasons.
yeah.
Um, we worked with a client that had a conference, and we were doing live tweeting from the conference, and we turned them into a trending topic for the day for all the right reasons, thankfully, because of the level of activity. But that was through manual brute force, not, well, I mean, yes, there was content, but that's not the same as, saying something controversial or offensive and you go viral for all the wrong reasons, which is, what brands don't want to sit down.
Oh, no, no, for sure. And I always tell the stakeholders that, the reason I think engagement is the most important metrics is because, as you mentioned earlier, like is easy. I just tap it. Share is sometimes easy. I can just do that. And I don't need to put comment on my own thing, when sharing. Um, but leaving a comment below or starting to join the conversation, it takes effort. And I would say over the last years or during my time doing social listening is that we kind of know social tends to skew negative because it really takes a lot for people to put in the effort um, to say something, whether it's positive or negative, right? And then to say something positive, that's even more like you have to, for a brand or business, you have to do far more better than what you are expected to do.
Well, that makes me, I want to talk to you about sentiment a little further in that, like you said, social can by default, because I mean, the social realistic solutions, it's using artificial intelligence, it's using language processing, and some of the examples I've given in the past, we were doing some listening for a mining company that was publicly traded, and someone had tweeted out about in reference to this company that they are a best kept secret. But because it used the word secret, the best kept secret is actually a positive, it's praiseworthy, etc. But because it used the word secret, sentiment was seen as negative. Now, so you can teach it over time. Or if I say, I went to this party last night, the party was sick. Well, my slang, for those who know that that's a positive, but the language processing, oh, no, that's negative. So what I'm wondering is when we're advising clients or stakeholders about sentiment, how did you sort of help them navigate or understand, I guess, context and when they should be concerned about sentiment and when they should perhaps don't worry, it may say negative, but it's actually neutral or that it doesn't warrant attention. But talk to us about navigating that.
So what I'm hearing is that your question is how do I advise a stakeholder that sometimes negative on social isn't necessarily a negative thing?
Well, that part of it, now maybe it could be some more context. So, from my perspective, I've often seen when there is negative sentiment, don't look at it sort of on the surface. What is the underlying potentially systemic issue that might be causing that? So the examples I gave are where some of the solutions were getting the sentiment wrong based on the language it analyzed. But if I'm a major telecom provider and my toll-free customer service line has extended wait times, people might go to social and be complaining about, I've been on hold for an hour. Well, and sad face emoji or angry face. Well, that's going to get picked up as negative sentiment. But you can, as you peel the onion back, you get to realize, oh, I know why that sentiment is negative. It's because of the customer service toll-free line issue. So it's that, when is it, I'll call it true and substantive negative sentiment versus, no, you can ignore that because it's, and the spectrum in between.
Yeah, I think that just like you said, right, Andrew, it's really anything comes down to the context. One sentence, look on the surface may be negative, but if you need to dig deeper to understand why is that, why people saying that, and what's the circumstance of that, and what was happening around that time. Right. So I think to do that, you really need to be aware of a lot of things. And then again, to your clients or to your internal stakeholders, to their specific business, what matters. So I think you use one example is that, I went to a party that was sick and, I have to admit, I need to get that from my daughters. I say, what does that mean exactly? Like, oh, that means really cool, right? So, but those are things, if you think about a marketer, granted, some of the executives there, they may not know the term and they would think, oh my God, what happened? So that's when we come in, you kind of, be resourceful and, do a little bit of research on the net and figure out, oh, that's actually a new thing. And it's a good thing. So I think that's when you bring the value in, you take that, hey, that's a lot of people will attend this event that we say we held last night and they think it's sick and that's really positive, right? So I think, it's like going back to what I said, being curious, being, open-minded, being, observant to what's going on. And that's what you want, be relatable as a brand.
Continuing on that thread, when you were, I talked about the actionable insight, the so what. So you'd explain the context of the sentiment, saying like, this is actually a good thing, but not just social, but like when you worked for a firm that did media monitoring, both social and otherwise, when you would be reflecting data back to stakeholders, were you the lens through which um, the insights were conveyed, or did they have specifics about what they wanted to know, or were you distilling it for them to say, here's what's noteworthy, or was it a combination of the two?
Yeah, it's a combination of, what you just said. I think a lot of time, um, they come to us and say, you know, what's out there? Like, I don't know. How do people feel about topic X, right? Then sometimes, I think it's this. Can you validate? So I always say, the data will build a case for you. And what I mean by that is, I believe, all conversations start with listening. Just as in real life, do people still use in real life term nowadays? But so I think to answer your question, like most companies starts, listening as a marketing function. That's probably the easiest place to start, but it may not be the highest value for the work. So I can give one example that my experience was. Many corporations sponsor many things. And nowadays, cancel culture is somewhat popular. So when things happen, like you really need to, and that's the first thing that people jump on, right? Social to share their voice, their opinions. So you really do need to look at that, and then come back and examine, your relationship with you know whether it's like actors or personality and whatnot, and decide whether it aligns with your brand voice, and whether you should cut a tie. So I think in the past, many cases happen because we were able to quickly comb through the social conversation and get that sentiment and kind of validate the action to do, right. I think a lot of things that ended up in traditional media starts in social. So that sort of, uh, predict a signal, it's very important. And I think social can really help business to do that.
Well, the example you just shared speaks to there's two things. There's monitoring for the brand, just how it's being talked about in general, and hopefully how it trends over time, that sentiment remains neutral but positive over time. But then in along that continuum, you can have issues that arise. And then suddenly your listing gets diverted into particular issues related activities, so that these moments in time where there might be something that wants deeper attention, it's an escalation. Um, what what if any advice have you given in the past or would give about how organizations should handle these diversions of issues?
Yeah, so diversion, especially nowadays, it's for people that who don't
So they don't
know,
get canceled.
essentially. And so for business or for some management that who do not understand, social would think, oh my God, what's happening, right? There are 10 posts about us being in a negative way. So the way we do that is utilizing the social listening tools. We usually would build sort of the benchmark base, if you will, like generally what's the volume of a particular brand or our company look like over, let's say, a year. So we can get that trend line to see, okay, this is what we usually get, good or bad altogether. This is a volume, and then we separate out sort of the negative mentions and say, okay, these are the events that may or may not align with our overall mention. And when things happen, like you say, those diversions or some negative events happened, we certainly watch very closely for those and layer that with the overall brand mention volume. Then we can say, sure, that was either a short period of time, distraction, or it's consistent, it's a longer period of time, but the volume is really low compared to the overall brand matching. Just so we can get a sense of, whether it's a friction or whether it's something major that we need to pay attention to.
So, but in the midst of one of those situations, are you advising stakeholders to look at, okay, the volume of the conversation related to them, the participants of that conversation, are there influencers among them? Is there even outreach to some of these individuals to try to mitigate or sort of quell the controversy? What happens I'll call it in the moment?
So I feel like you've also experienced these a lot. That's like you kind of also
here and there, but I always like other perspectives.
answer the question. But I think you hit it all. Right? That quite often you look at those and then you try to do deeper analysis, right? For certain topic. Does it gain any traction, like you say, over time? Or is it only that small group of people where we call echo chamber, right? Is it always that small group of people talking among themselves? Did their message ever spread far and wide? So that's how we kind of, assess that situation, and we can present that.
And now, a word from our sponsor. Social media has become an imperative for almost every business. Discover how to successfully implement an effective social media strategy that is supported and integrated throughout every part of your organization with this essential book from our host, Andrew Jenkins. Social Media Marketing for Business, Scaling an Integrated Social Media Strategy Across Your Organization, is now available from Amazon or KoganPage.com.
Is it your favorite group of trolls that...
Is it just you and me talking?
Yeah, like it's Bob again. He's complaining. And Bob's not even a customer. He just likes to attack the brand because, he just wants to shout into the void. That's one type of issue to deal with versus, oh, this is a very important customer of ours.
Exactly.
They're not happy. Well, that's all. They're clear.
And you bring up very, important points. Is know your client.
Know your important stakeholders, and I refer to a sort of trio. And I think you've seen the decision tree from David Armano when he was with Edelman. Like who said it? Are they influential? What is the issue that they're talking about? Does it for their attention, for their investigation, whatever? And does it, as well internally, has the organization decided if there's an issue, what's our internal service level agreement to ourselves? 3-hour response time, same business day, who's in the escalation path, who has veto power, or turbo power, whatever. Hopefully, a small business or most organizations never have to deal with that kind of stuff. But if you're a national or international brand, sometimes you have to deal with those issues.
Very often, I would say.
We sort of touched on this in the beginning about, those sort of, as Twitter was emerging, because it was such an open platform, it became this big thing where conversations happen. Sadly, from my perspective, it's not as big as it used to be. Conversations have slowed into other arenas and so on. But we used, to some degree, still use Twitter as a proxy to denote the online spectrum of conversation. but we have to remind ourselves that Twitter is not necessarily representative of everyone in all conversations. And so I'm wondering, one, what your experience has been, sort of setting the context there, or explaining to stakeholders, we're using this as a bit of a proxy, so, don't put all of your eggs in the one basket. But that, and then part two of that is, where else are you looking at conversations for insight? That is, things have shifted related to children.
Yeah, absolutely. I think as you mentioned, X, formerly known as Twitter,
Sorry, I'm still
the
in the
habit.
habit of
Yeah,
calling it what I've always known it to be.
right, right.
Like
Yes,
everything.
I'm with you on that. I prefer Twitter a lot, and ever since was taken over,
Yeah.
has
I still
changed.
tweet. I don't X.
Yeah. So the content, the conversation happened on that platform certainly has shifted. Um, you know, as our team, day in day out, watching it, and we feel like there's not that many interesting content on there like before. And algo is all messed up, I have to say. It's very different. Like, why does this come to my timeline? Like, I don't follow, or it's not the topic that I'm interested in. But anyway, um, there's some limitation there. So we always, and I think in my lab work, we do a whole lot of education, a whole lot. I would say 30% of the time is education. Telling the stakeholders, business partners, what is possible, what is not. To the X. Every social media platform, all we can watch is the public posts, right? So we always put that layer so they know it's not everything. The conversation could be representative. It's not all your, survey or focus group type of thing. But I also have to say, X and the social media platform overall is that you get that unsolicited feedback. You didn't ask for it, right? And people volunteer that, good or bad. It's I like to think it's the honest opinion you can get without paying for it, right? So I think we kind of shape that. X is one of many social media platform that we listen carefully, and we value the conversation. In addition to that, Reddit is also very important. I find there's Reddit is really a gold mine for a lot of business and topics. Other than that, Facebook, Instagram has its limits. It's difficult to search. It's only hashtag based and whatnot. And then, of course, TikTok is a new kid on the block.
It's fantastic, but the ability to listen on it is limited, or to, like, it's all manual and sort of brute force. There's not a way to organize the insights you're finding and things like that. So, yeah, fingers
Yet,
I remain hopeful.
right,
But
right.
Just to pick up on that, on the education piece, I've had to explain to stakeholders, saying, the example I've given in the past is, we did a project for an insurance company about life insurance and dental insurance. And you have to explain to them, nobody blatantly says, I'm going to buy life insurance today. But they might have said that to their significant other in a conversation, a private conversation, but they're not going to social media to say, I am excited to be buying a life insurance policy today. No. But they do talk about life events that may have a trigger or are related to with that insurance. Like, I bought a house, so I want to buy life insurance to protect my significant, my family members from having the burden of my mortgage or whatever it is. So it's explaining to stakeholders, we have to listen for these reframe conversations that are related, but aren't specific to the topic of insurance. They're important and relevant to the discussion of insurance, but they don't blatantly include the word insurance. And I mean, not always. So I'm wondering what your experience has been sort of educating people to that different perspective. So, because if you're looking for, I need your keywords from stakeholders, you have to give them the saying, or even, don't be so literal. I need you to think about it from a multitude of angles.
Oh yeah, I was actually gonna say, every time we ask, well, what are the, some of the terms or keywords we can use, and the keywords we get back from the stakeholders, business partners, like, you got to be kidding me. But
very literal, black and white, and they're like, no, this is nuance. This is where art and science are merged.
Right, or even so generic, like general, that you literally search for the whole internet. So I think it's, again, trying to tell them, normally this is what people say on social, and maybe just provide them with, do a quick search and provide them with few example of the posts, how people talked about their life event, how people talked about their intentions of doing something, how people talked about their needs. As you said, I may not say I need to get my, health insurance or dental coverage, but I could say, I have, root canal work need to get done in the next 2 months, right? Or I say, oh my God, I did not realize the root canal is so expensive. So those are the things that the business can look into, be either new products or, improvement.
Well, the example I've given is when it comes to still on life insurance, if someone's having a baby, their significant other is having a baby, and it's the idea of how many different ways can we say having a baby, and then having to listen for all the different combinations and permutations of the way someone might express that. Well, like sort of theoretic synonyms. One of the other things that I wanted to ask you was, you've got, I'll call it your category of analytics that you're focused on. And then you've got other lines of business or other sort of complementary or adjacent metrics to be paying attention to. So I'll use an example where running analysis up in the social media realm, but how does that correlate or translate into Google Analytics? Referral traffic to the website, conversions. How do when it comes to what I call closing the loop? We did this in social and it had this kind of outcome on the website. Talk to me a little bit about that. Is there much time and energy devoted to that? Especially because stakeholders might be asking, well, that, whatever you said in that tweet was nice, but what does that mean to the business? And so it could even go beyond Google Analytics to a business outcome that someone's focused
on. So I would just say, in my current line of work, what we focus on is really the protect the brand reputation. That's number one, high priority. What we usually look at, how do we tie the social listening back to the business? In this case, would be more in the PR or communications world. Is that we can say, there's many mention on social about particular release, if you will, and would that just
what the reaction was?
Like the media coverage, were picked up by different media outlets, or we would have, reporters or people reach out and say, I want to know more about that, or could I do interview with X, Y, and Z? So that's how we look at it from that angle. The other thing I would say is really going back to, monitoring some issues that, we kind of know, okay, maybe this influencer is spreading some, message about our brand. And do we have any way to reach out and maybe, um, correct some of the, information that maybe not truthful? So that's we call sort of an outreach, and then in that stage, so those are some of the metrics that we can bring back to the business.
Well, and I've always believed that you can, if, to your point, if there's an online conversation happening about you, and there are some things being said that you object to, or could be misconstrued, or it's misinformation, or whatever, you can't influence, participate. But to what you suggested early on was, we all have to listen first. In order to be a proper and active participant in any conversation, you have to start listening. Which, so that leads me to, so for any organization that historically hasn't actively listened before, what's your guidance on one, where to start, and a short list of what they should, when they first for it, what they should be listening for?
If they haven't started, I would say get on it right now.
Well, but so assuming they're about to start, I guess where they'll focus their attention, or I don't mean to specific tools, but it's kind of like, if you're going to do this here, like, make sure you're doing it for, here's the why you should be doing it. Although we touched on some of that, but just, I guess, what advice or guidance do you give people to, as they potentially begin their listening journey?
Yeah, I think always ties back to your business objective, right? Listen to what people say about your brand, where they said it, and what about it, and then really ties that back to your business objective. Like, are you trying to control the narrative, or you hoping to change people's perception about your brand? Like, you have to start somewhere, and then to start somewhere is really to understand what people saying about your brand already, right? And how can you change the narrative, or even control the narrative, as to how you want people think about your brand. So I think, does that answer your question? Does that make sense?
No, very helpful. And I can't let you go without asking, what's the either a noteworthy example of where a brand has either done a poor job of listening or ignored conversation that's been happening about them to the point where it was too late, or it was so delayed that, in hindsight, they really should have gone on this, I don't know, early. Any examples come to mind?
Not really. If they have not been on there, I don't know. They're not on my radar. But I do have to say, one good example that just happened recently, it's Yeti. I don't know if you saw.
Yeti, the cooler.
Thermos? Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah. So Yeti, because I think I look at their X profile, the hashtag they use is Built for Life. So what happened was, on TikTok, a woman shared a video that her car was caught on fire. So everything burned down.
Oh, it's sorry, I just saw it on TikTok. It's forgive me, it's not Yeti, it's Stanley.
Is it?
Yeah.
Stanley? Oh, sorry.
It's okay. But fantastic example is Stanley listened or heard all about it. The TikTok I just watched was a response video from the CEO of Stanley, or the president of Stanley. They said, "Don't worry, we're going to send you some Stanley thermoses." But he said, "We've never done this before, and we're never going to do it again, but we're going to replace your car." I was like, holy cow.
Can you imagine?
Well, I mean, the brand love, and then, like, so whatever that car is going to cost them is just minuscule. Same thing with remember the guy on Ocean Spray, Fleetwood Mac? He drove up sales of the Fleetwood Mac song 30 years after its original release, they send them a truckload of ocean spray and a new truck. And then say,
So, so that was the example that I used. It's a perfect example of, social listening and, really just, bring your brand to the next level. And you think about the earned media. That's incredible.
but that leads to one piece of that is the agility by which the brand responded. And so, how do you convince a brand? It's not just listening; it's being prepared to listen and react quickly, and not just for negative, but like for an earned media opportunity. Because there's been numerous examples of brands that that sort of was alluded to earlier, where had they listened, they've missed. It's not just listening for negative; it's listening for earned media opportunities. Sometimes they're either too slow to react, they're too boring and staid, and like, oh no, we're not going to try to be cool with the kids, and it works against them. So I don't know how many thoughts on how organizations can be more agile for earned media.
I think, in this case, I would think that you're trying to pitch. But really, in that case, what one person can do is really to show a couple of examples, like the one we just talked about, Stanley, right? And how does that really truly reflect the brand voice and the brand image? So use several examples to show the potential, client or business, and this is really the value of it. And then if you're not doing or haven't done it, it's really you're missing out. And in order to do it properly, you have to resource for it. And by that, I don't mean you need to have an army of team, but like you mentioned, you do need to have someone or some people that are knowledge of, put together a video quickly, stitch it, right? And can write a creative copy, relevant, relatable message, and, put it out on social and just let it go. So I think those are the advice I would give.
Well, and I think there's an element of culture that there has to be sort of an existing culture of like being more human, being more gracious, kind, being willing to reach out. Or
Empathy.
Yeah, great word. And actually a great way for us to wrap this up is that to advise, social media listening should be very full empathy. What is it that we're listening for? The people that we're listening to, what they're saying, doing, and to take that perspective into that realm. So that's them. Thank you for that reference. It's a good place to listen, Sarah. I want to thank you for your time and everything you've shared. I always enjoy talking to you about this kind of stuff. So thanks for everything.
Thank you, Andrew. Thank you for having me.
Thank you for joining us on this episode of the Low Production High Value Show. Be sure to give us a rating and subscribe to make sure you never miss an episode. Don't forget to check out Volterra at volterradigital.com to learn more about how they can support your social media marketing.